All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts.
Here, if you have a beard, random men are going to always walk up to you and try to lick your beard.
Ew, that's so disgusting. Oh.
You're one of Mitten's kittens.
Hold on, so I'm like, nope.
Oh, well, you lost all your fleets.
Oh, fuck. Not what we intended. Oh, God. What do we do?
The Meta Show.
What's up, everyone? It is Saturday again, and that means it is time for the next Meta Show. This is another, or I guess part 2 of our show 2 weeks ago. We have with us the Mittani, Elise, Randolph, Thoric, Frosthammer, and always Nystrik. So, last night we had quite a bit of action, so if I look a little haggard and tired and completely fucked, or I guess for lack of better words, it's because we had a short 2-hour fleet last night, and if you were paying attention, you saw there was a rather large fight in Quirius. I guess, Elise, you want to tell us a little bit about that fight, actually?
Sure. I was actually just a little pleb in that fleet. It was raw in Mexico doing all the FCing. But basically, there's a station in Quirius called ED Dash. It's something that the Reavers took, I guess, when you guys were fighting N3. And Darkeshi really wanted it back, apparently. So they've been fighting for the last about 3 weeks over this system in Quirius. And yeah, last night was the final timer. And apparently Darkeshi called in a lot of favors. And a whole bunch of dudes showed up. BL came down with a 150-man Tengu fleet. NC Dot came down with a 100-and-something man Proteus fleet. Brave even showed up with a bunch of ECM bursting interceptors, which was pretty wild.
Wait a second, ECM bursting interceptors? How did that work out?
I heard that was pretty intense.
In TIDE, I imagine, it was actually pretty awful because you just have to relock and it feels like it takes forever.
I can tell you that a few times they accidentally ECM burst my fleet, and it was rather infuriating.
Yeah,
But at the end of the day, there was 1,400 dudes in the system. I think nobody thought to reinforce it. So it was pegged at 10% tie-dye for what felt like about 5 hours. I don't know how long it actually was, but it felt like it was 5 hours of just sitting in 10% tie-dye.
I mean,
and brawling outrageous. Like, it was pretty wild.
According to Sword Dragon, it was they petitioned for a reinforced node. So I would assume that it was reinforced because I'm pretty sure that's all done automatically these days.
Yeah.
So you put in the petition, then it automatically happens.
Either that or
that node did not eat its Wheaties because that felt like a really shitty node. Maybe it was because there weren't even that many drones there. There was like 100 Ishtar drones or something. That's it.
Well, they had a mid-fight remap of all of the nearby systems that caused some issues, so I'm not sure if they reinforced it really or not.
Yeah, but at the end of the things, Darkeshi lost a bunch of dreads. Goons, Imperium sniped a station out from under them. But,
yeah.
Darkeshi was able to take the TCU out, and eventually they got it, and right before downtime, I think.
This fight basically should have never happened. I mean, the reality of the situation is that we had no real campaign or desire to take Aquarius, right? Like, there was no strategic macro level, we want ED Dash. It was this, all of this grew out of, one of our special interest groups, the Reavers, which is supposed to be a guerrilla force that does behind-the-lines soft warfare and pointedly is not supposed to actually engage in pitched battles. And then they started winning pitched battles against Darkness and Kadeshi, and then they ended up taking the station and have held it for like a fucking month or something. Like this entire thing is ridiculous. Like this entire incident should not be. The Reavers are not supposed to be fighting. If they are fighting, they're usually supposed to be running away, not winning. They're certainly not supposed to beat entire alliances. And then all of this build up into this massive loss for Darkness and their capital fleet getting vaporized. Over a station that they, by all rights, shouldn't have been able to lose in the first place. It was, I mean, I'm very proud of my boys, obviously, because holy crap, Reavers and Asher Elias and the rest of the leadership team have just been doing an amazing job setting up these fights. We all get to benefit from the content they've provided, but from just a sort of a macro level chessboard perspective, a special interest group is not supposed to be able to take on one, much less two alliances and hold them off for so long that the entirety of Eve has to get involved to get the station
backbone favors in.
Right, like, yeah, no.
There was definitely all of Eve there last night. Like, local was 1,400 or so during basically the entire thing.
Well, I mean, people are bored.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're one of the few shows in town, there's not much else going on. Everybody shows up.
Yep.
I remember this last week though. It's been a huge change from what we were talking about last week about how everything's really boring and there's nothing going on. But there's been a lot this last week.
Things do seem to be heating up, which is nice. I mean, like in general, you're starting to see more action, more fights. You see these smaller entities that normally don't have anything to do with Sov, like Black Legion or Triumvirate, fighting for and taking Sov in prep for FozzeSov. So, it seems like things are happening again. It's not really like grand narratives and wars, but at least shit is blowing up in big numbers.
Well, I think the drone areas is cooled off just a little bit. That area was actually incredibly active basically in the last month, but it's starting to cool down a bit. I think Solar and Nully running into each other, and Solar and XIX and Nully and Tri kind of running into one another's made them all a little bit haggard. So they're just kind of slowing
when you
up
got
a bit.
any number of people third-partying it from the north who are just, as I said, real bored. So
yeah. Well, that's the face of it, right? Nobody really enjoys creating the timers, but when there is a timer, everyone will show up.
Yeah, bored and wormholes, man.
You can get rid of caps. You can completely change the jump drive mechanics. You can delete everything, and they'll still show up.
I think I like to say that probably the biggest thing that happened last night was a space captain, a FC that some people might know was there on the field. One that goes by the name of Shadu was actually in game last night playing.
What? No way.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay.
I haven't heard that name in a really long time.
What's up with that? Was he calling in from Australia? What was this? What's the story there?
Hey, he was in Australia. Shit. So yeah, he was in Australia. He was in a Saber. He and I, because I wasn't in the right ship either. I just caught up to the fleet as it had gone. So I came in an interceptor. So we were just catching crashers and shooting them. And
Wow.
It was pretty
In a Ron
grim.
Mexico fleet. That's interesting. So you and Ron Mexico and you and Shadu both got to sort of like take time off as FCs and just be line members, and
Yeah, it's fun to do, to be honest.
It's relaxing.
Plus, Ron Mexico's pretty good. PL is always like bred on new guys stepping up and doing things. So it's really
Ron Mexico is great. I mean, I met him at the most recent Eve Vegas, and he's just really a great dude. He's a lot of fun to hang out with, and it's nice to see him on the field leading.
He's a funny guy too. He's very fun. Very
He's awesome.
very enthusiastic.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. But so besides ED Dash and the fights that we had there, you mentioned some other fights, Nystrik, that you had seen recently.
There was the Triumvirate versus Nully fight, and then the really small but really big loss in Geminate. It was like an 11-minute squall, but it was like 27 billion worth of losses for like this small little fight. And I mean, I'm not entirely sure of all the details of what happened in Geminate or why people were in Geminate fighting.
Because there was a fight there. There's just a lot of bored people in the north. This is what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah.
I think we've mentioned it about 6 times already so far this episode. Just lots of boredom, boys.
Well, it's going to be, I think that's going to change for us soon. I mean, hopefully, one of the things that I'm excited about in terms of like shaking up the meta, because these fights that are happening, you're still seeing the occasional rattlesnake fleet and hearing about interceptors with the ECM bursts. That is novel and curious, and that's neat to see sort of the meta shaking up. And I'm just going to segue us, I guess. One of the things that I'm hoping for is on the test server for Eve, there's now these basically low slot modules. We don't have stats for them yet, but they're changing the missile mechanics to basically allow you to increase the range and precision of missiles. And, I'm hoping that that will help shake up the meta a little bit so that we can get away from these Ishtar and, it's been Ishtar and Tengu fights for a year and a half or more now.
All Phoenixes all the time. So
Yeah, well, Tengus are starting to lose favor a little bit because people are realizing how very weak they are, especially the old rail Tengus.
Well, I'm going to be curious to see what happens with the Tengus, because, like, sure, on the one hand, the rail Tengus might be, less optimal than they were previously, but if they do boost missiles, you could see a return to just shift over to the heavy missile Tengu, which was very popular before the rail Tengus.
Yeah, I remember a few years ago, maybe it wasn't a few years ago, it was probably just 1 year ago or so that Fozzie was mentioning somewhere that he wanted to make a tracking enhancer for missiles on the forums, but they just couldn't get it balanced right because it was either too shitty or it was too overpowered, right? So they couldn't find that nice little happy balance.
Well, the goal, I think, was for them to be able to have tracking disruptors also affect missiles.
Yeah, exactly,
And
exactly.
the biggest problem I see with this and with adding this module, which is going to be a low slot module for the tracking enhancer module, is Caldari ships don't have any spare slot layouts to be able to put on these tracking enhancers, because if you look at most Caldari ships, you're looking at maybe 3 to 4 lows a lot of the time.
Yeah, you got one that's always a damage control, and then you want a few ballistic controls as well, because the damage itself is anemic.
Well, exactly. So if you have to put those on for range, like, are they going to gimp missiles so they have lower range so that you're forced to fit these tracking enhancers?
I guess this is going to be the age of the sacrilege, right? The only armor missile ship in the game, right?
A very brief time that like the sacrilege is actually good. That would be
Well, the
interesting
Ham
to see.
Legion. That's it.
Yeah.
You know. All right. Well, actually, speaking of segues, that we're 15 minutes into the show. Why don't we give something away? What do we have?
We're actually not doing that this week. We're
not?
swapping it
Okay.
around. We're gonna move the giveaways to the end. Some people didn't like the way it worked last week, so we're gonna change it up again and see if people prefer this way, the old way, and see, just to see.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna.
Sorry about that. We're apparently changing things on the fly. My bad.
Yeah, doing it live.
Okay.
But no, and speaking of Caldari ships and missiles and stuff, the Jackdaw was released this week, and it is extremely broken.
This is my surprise face.
If you put like 600 mil into the fit of a Jackdaw, you can tank like 12 to 1300 DPS.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
Wow.
Ventaro was running around in one of them, and he was able to tank a Vigilant in a Jackdaw.
That's actually pretty insane. Like, I figured it would just be like a giant crow that could just murder his own small ships really, really well. But I had no idea they would make it so tanky.
It's a rocket platform, man. It's too fat and slow to be like a really proper kiting ship. And like solo PvP wise or small scale PvP, but for rockets, it's got a great personal tank, and it has a lot of capabilities in fleet warfare if you get a few of them with light missiles.
I've seen a lot of people using them for gate camps because they are slow but do deal that giant punch. So
Yeah.
That is nice, though. I really like ships that destroy frigates and destroyers, and I guess even cruisers. Like, I really like
He's just
ships
a
like that,
hater.
especially when they promote sort of a brawling setup, because obviously the ship's quite tanky and it's rockets, so it wants to get in and then brawl.
Like, how far out can it hit with rockets now? Isn't it like the longest possible range with rockets? Something like.
In sharpshooter mode with javelins, you can hit out to 25 kilometers. Wow. Which is pretty far.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So you are able to deal with the kiting ships with it. And depending on what fit you're running, it's actually quite maneuverable with double webs and everything, where you actually can take advantage of the Tech 2 DPS rockets, which is the Rage rockets, and they're able to save 6 mids, which is absurd for a destroyer. They can fit all the extra modules. But
I'm curious, like, is this going to end up being like another Sfiffle or Confessor situation where they end up having to nerf it and go like, whoops, we screwed up?
Probably.
Yeah, there's going to be a nerf coming, and it's most likely going to be a CPU nerf. They're going to nerf how much CPU it has for fitting. Because a lot of times the constraints on Caldari ships is the CPU, and the Jackdaw has way too much CPU on it, making it way too flexible when it comes to the fitting.
It's more situationally overpowered than say this Veeple was, so it probably doesn't need as big a nerfs to that, but it's still.
I mean, I guess it's one of those things where some of the design discussion I was seeing is that you can make it fit for a very particular purpose. Like if you're going to have, with that many mid slots, you can go like, here is a fit that specializes purely in like ambushing people in like a faction warfare complex, right? So, a specific double web fit or like an ECM fit or something or other like that. And under those circumstances, when you can control the engagement, that should be pretty nuts. I don't know. We'll have to see. I'm curious to see if each iteration of these destroyers has been so powerful. I'm really kind of curious to see what the hell they're going to do with the Hecate, or however you say it.
I believe it's called Tecate.
Tecate.
Named after
Jesus.
the Mexican beer.
Get it right,
Wow.
man. The Mexican beer.
Awesome.
And also with the Jackdaw, I was talking about the 6 mids, and Elise might know this more than I would. Is the Jackdaw, being that's an early ship, allowed in the tournament this year?
Yeah.
All right. And so
It's the same points as a cruiser though, so it's 6 points.
okay. Yeah. So in most tournament setups, you have frigates like the Caldari Navy Hookbill and Merlin and all these other ships with E-War mids. Could you see the Jackdaw? Is it worth the 6 points as an E-War platform?
Probably not. Just because they're doing a strange thing to the tournament this year. Well, not strange, but they're doing a different thing to the tournament this year, in that all of the E-War you have, you cannot bring scripts with. Mm-hmm. So dams, you're really going to want to have like a Mollis or Carries to get your dams on, because those will, unscripted, those are actually still pretty strong. But an unscripted, non-bonused, we call them weak dams, like that you would put on a Jackdaw, are probably a little bit too weak. We might see some play, right. But like it's the exact same points as Celestis. So
this year you think you're going to see more actual dedicated E-War frigs in the game and in the tournament?
I think so.
Okay. That's good to know. I mean, because it's really going to change the tournament from all the previous years with these changes. Then.
Yeah, the tournament format. If we want to just segue a little bit, they released the prize ships. The prize ships is cripes. I forgot. One's a
Hector.
One's a Hector.
I'm
insane bonuses for no reason. Like I don't understand why they did it, but it's great. It's just a Hector that doesn't get the mass penalty for the thingies for the focus point. So you can just go like 8K with the thing on.
Well, it's got a at level 5 Caldari Cruiser, it's got a 100% bonus to afterburner velocity.
Yeah, and then there's an Interceptor as well, the Sanchez Interceptor that has an afterburner bonus as well. It's an afterburner bonus and a tracking bonus or something.
Yeah, they both have the exact same bonuses.
So they're going with prizes that are completely different than breaking the mold from what they did last year. I expected like a recon and a logistics or something, like an armor logistics, like the armor version of the Atana or something. Did not expect a Hector and an Interceptor with like no cloak or anything.
Yeah, like you actually got to see a lot of Chromois compared to other AT ship losses, like the Chromois and its cousin actually had loss mails because they were designed to be like solo PvP boats that you could actually run around and use. And you just don't see that many other AT ships ever fielded in actual PvP. It's a rarity, but those ones got some use. They're great kill mails for people. I wish that they would be, similar to that in the future, such that regular players had a chance to encounter them somewhere. I don't really know how you do that with the afterburning, like the ones this year. I just don't think we're going to see that much of.
Well, afterburners are actually extremely strong. Afterburners is the meta in low sec right now. If you're PvPing in low sec, you're most likely fitting an afterburner because of how many frags and all that are running around. So you're pretty much destined to get scrammed immediately.
Yeah, scrams are awful.
As we were discussing earlier, one of the big things going on down in the south that fed into those giant battles in ED were those 100 MN Ishtars that are so hard to kill. So,
yeah, so
I actually hate oversized afterburners. They're so off.
It pretty much is always like it's very rare that it's a situation where you have an oversized afterburner doctrine or setup that isn't just ridiculously overpowered. Like I'm not even sure why from a mechanics perspective it's allowed, because the reason why the Confessor and the Swivel ended up being so nuts was because they were running around with 10 MNAVs. Right. And the Ishtars, when you put a battleship afterburner on them, is also completely nuts, because since Sentry drones are totally balanced, you have the situation where you've got a ship that can go as fast as it wants. The tracking isn't impacted at all by the speed of the ship or its lack of agility. And it's dumb. I agree with that completely.
Well, and also speaking of the tournament ships, is one of the interesting things about it is they get this huge afterburner bonus, but they also get it's actually a battleship sized bonus to tracking, which is 7.5% per level for their guns, so you should be able to actually oversize prop mod the Fiend. I would think 100 Fiend. What do you think about that, Elise?
Sounds hellish. Like that thing's gonna go so fast, especially when you turn the focus. When you turn the bubble on, it's just gonna go crazy.
So there's a question in chat I'm curious about. Astronautistic was asking, can AT prizes be used in the AT Alliance tournament?
Yes.
Yes, they can. They're not always
right.
They don't get balanced because the balance team doesn't want to devote a week or whatever to balance 50 ships that are in the game, right? Mm-hmm. So some of the older ships are kind of garbage. like the Memur is, and even the Freki, and kind of to a lesser extent the Utu, they're kind of not that great. But the latest ones are kind of good. The Maracha is neat because, especially in this meta where you might get Hugins banned out, so you can just bring a Maracha instead. And the Etana is incredibly strong. The Cambion, which is basically a Moa, but in a Merlin's body. So it's really incredibly tanky, and it uses missile. I guess it's a Drake in a Merlin's body.
Yay, Drakes!
So they're pretty cool ships. The Etanas are incredibly strong. They're logistic ships that can rep further and rep more. They have more cap and things like this.
I'm still waiting on the Adrestia fleet and Elise.
Yep. Well,
the dream.
It's actually still, it's a little strong this year, I think, just because of the amount of control that they have. And I suspect a lot of people, since a lot of E-War is going to be out of the picture, or a lot of damps are going to be out of the picture, people are just going to go a lot of rush setups that can get easily controlled. So maybe we'll see some Adrestias.
All right.
Well, I mean, are you involved in the tournament teams this year, Elise? Or are you sort of watching from the outside? I'm kind of curious as to who you think the big dogs are going to be this go around. Like, is Noli Secunda going to end up taking out PL or what have you again?
It's possible. Like, that's the thing, because Noli have a team they merged with the old Hun team, Hun Reloaded, and they're quite strong. They're very, very good in the ATs. For as long as I can remember, Huns has been incredibly strong.
Yep.
And generally their shtick is they get like 3 or 4 setups, but they run them better than anyone else. And they just change them a little bit so they're unbannable. The thing that's changing this Alliance tournament is that you're only allowed to take 2 of the same ship type, which doesn't sound like a big deal because before it was 3.
That's interesting.
So it doesn't sound like a big deal, but when you think about it, or the more you think about it, the more you realize that if you can only bring 2 of a certain ship type, you can then completely begin to ban entire archetypes. So there's this gimmick of just taking cruisers with sentries and just kiting around, and you couldn't ban it because if you ban the Ishtar, I'll just take the Vexor. If you ban the Vexor, I take the Eos.
I mean,
or the Gila, stuff like that. But now, like, those entire setups become bannable. Because if I take out the Gila and the Vexor, then okay, you only have like 4 ships to choose from, and you can't take them all. So that's going to be an interesting thing. But to answer your question, I'm going to be incredibly involved in the PL practice team. We've actually got a practice, I think, right now that I'm ditching, but it's fine. We'll do one tomorrow.
So how intense is that? I mean, from what I understand, like the guys who get really serious in the tournament practice mode, like it can be, PL sort of shuts down every year when it gets to tournament season. And from what I understand, like Hydra Reloaded, PL, these other guys who take it really seriously will often like practice for like 8 hours a day for weeks or something. Like it becomes like this really sort of insane training regimen. How does that work? Like,
yeah, and the bar gets lifted
on CC.
The bar gets lifted every year as well to try and one up from last year. So ever since Alliance Tournament 8 and onwards, the amount of effort that people have been putting into the Alliance Tournament has increased. And it's not just the top tier teams, it's every type of team. Like even the teams that you would think would be mid-tier or maybe like first weekend busts, if you throw them in an Alliance Tournament from 3 or 4 years ago, I think they would be top 5. Like that's how crazy people have gone over this.
Wow.
But for PL, basically what happens is the Alliance doesn't necessarily shut down, but a lot of the people that enjoy the Alliance tournament are a lot of the FCs and the people that used to like your scouts and things like this. So all those
content
guys,
creators, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So all those guys start doing the Alliance tournament, and it starts basically PL have it on the weekends we test. Then Monday, Wednesday, Friday we test for like 3 hours. And on the weekends it's like 5 hours.
Wow. That's a
a
lot
lot
of
of
gonna
time.
start-
A lot of dedication. Yeah.
We're starting this weekend. So, and the Alliance tournament's August 20th or something. So we get 2 months of this.
Wow.
And it's actually, the best way to describe it, I think, is like an extended family meeting for Thanksgiving every other day. And so you get like,
That's a
you have like
nightmare.
really
right?
I was
fun
gonna say
times.
that sounds
but then-
awful.
But then it's also a nightmare because you have to like deal with each other, and like fights just break out of nowhere.
Are you implying that turkey is eaten at some point during this?
Maybe there's gonna be some turkey, there's some naps, there's definitely some drinking.
I'm looking.
Thanksgiving is basically like I'm never like it's my least favorite of holidays in general, and so the idea of like having an extended Thanksgiving that lasts that
2 months,
long,
yeah.
that's basically a circle of hell right there.
I like the food part. I'm not a huge fan of the let's go visit your family part.
I'm looking at chat, and this guy actually brings up a really, really good point. Durs Patriot. You're literally and talking about the fiend, the interdictor or the heavy interdictor for the prize. You're literally bubbling your 140 billion ISK tournament ship. So that's a pretty good point.
Yeah.
But you can have the little script in the thing, so
yeah, I guess
you can just make it so you can't receive reps. So there you go.
Yeah. So it's kind of counterintuitive.
That's a little weird. Yeah.
Yeah,
how much actual trade happens on these things? Like, I know that a lot of alliances are getting into the tournament as a hopeful source of income because they can then theoretically sell these VPCs for these rare ships. How much actual trade happens in that? Like, when you get these things, do you guys just sit on them? Do you actually make money selling them off, or what?
I don't know what other alliances do. I know what PL used to do is we would just take, like, when you win, if you do win, you get 50 of the BPCs. This was back in the day. They've changed it a little bit. So when PL used to win all the time, well, we still kind of do, but whenever we won, historically what we would do is just say, oh, you tested, so here, you get to have your memer. There you go. Great. See you later. And just gave them out. And that really destabilized the market because some guy doesn't care about the Alliance tournament prize ship. He just wants a Plex or something. So we had a guy sell a tournament ship to Entity for 8 billion ISK. That was the first one to sell, the very first memer to sell in the open market. He undersold it. The next one was sold for like 40 bill or something, but he sold his for 8.
So it's kind of like, with Moon Goo or something like that. You have to have some sort of regulation on it, or otherwise people will...
Yeah, exactly. So now what PL does is we just keep them all. We sell a few that we need and just give out oodles of money. Like we gave out, when we won Alliance Tournament 10, we gave out like 1.3 trillion ISK in prizes just because.
Wow.
Just as rewards, just because it's pretty cool.
You should sell me an Adrestia, Elise.
I've
been trying to get one. No one will sell me one.
The thing that we have
what's
a lot
the market
right
price
now.
there? Like, what do they go for?
Adrestia, probably about 100 bill now.
Yeah, between 70 and 100, yeah.
When I was looking at them, they were about 20 bill. But I still want one.
I thought when they first come out that they were like 20-ish, like when they first hit. So I didn't realize they had gone up that much. That's interesting.
Yeah, the Adrestia
that was
is my
a
dream
thing
ship.
as well. Because when PL won the Adrestia tournament, so we just gave them out to members and people just sold them willy-nilly, so the prices would be erratic. But now recently, they changed the prize structure, which was really long overdue. So before it used to be first place got 50 cruisers, second place got 50 frigates. But they were the same price anyway, so first and second place was just, do you get a gold medal or a silver medal?
Right, which was the AT that they had like a rigged final match? What was that?
Oh, that was Alliance Tournament 9, I think. It was.
That's right, there was a huge drama there.
Yeah.
It was Hydra versus Hydra's BT.
That's right, yeah.
I think that was like one of the first times I actually watched the Alliance tournament. It was like really interesting.
They were
I actually
so
understood
mad.
what was happening, and I was like, what?
No, I think that was Alliance Tournament 10 because I think I was the commentator, or one of the commentators on there.
I think it was.
You should remember that.
It was the there was one where you got the Amar hack and the Amar assault frigate. So I'm pretty sure it was 9. Because I think maybe it was 10. I don't know.
I don't remember.
I think it was 9.
But let's see. The real reason we're all here, though, is FozzeSov. We wanted to come back and do a part 2 on FozzeSov, and I think we have about 20 minutes left to kind of dig into that, so it's probably best.
Well, before we start, I want to give Mittani a frowny face and ask his thoughts on the recent dev blog announcing that we've got another week delay on some of the initial releases on the 7th. They were supposed to come out on the 7th. They're now coming out on the 14th.
Okay, so, I mean,
July.
A few weeks ago we had a sort of a depressing meta show where we were discussing the strike and all of the sort of financial shenanigans and things that we were worried about with CCB and the delays. And I was concerned enough that people in chat were being a little weird, like, sad mittens is scary, that kind of thing. The good news is that the strike that we were worried was going to take CCB off the table for an entire month is no longer a concern because they went off and they made waffles or whatever. So, the month of July and June are not like screwed for work. FozzeSov has been delayed a week. Was recently announced in DevBlog. There have been two sort of new items to discuss with FozzeSov. One is the fact that it's been delayed now to July 14th, and obviously we're concerned about further delays. I'm not going to really sweat a week delay, I guess, after they already delayed it a month. A month and a week doesn't really worry me. If that goes up even more, you're going to start seeing frowny face mittens on the show. Yeah, so I mean, that's the thing. Delays are bad. We need content. Everybody prepared for FozzeSov to come in basically the start of June, and it didn't happen. And so now we're having these sort of random irrelevant fights, but at least fights are happening. That's good. At least there's not a strike. That's good. One change that happened that is a little weird. So we got the first implementation of FozzeSov with Intosis links and stuff in this most recent patch a few days back. And what was strange. So before I go into this, like the caveat is I pretty much like the mechanics of FozzeSov, like the actual, the mechanics as they've been listed to us since the initial discussions of FozzeSov. Like the first draft of it, there were some problems. Almost all the concerns that I had about the system, like the mechanics of it, have been sorted out. But then something really weird happened, and it was not discussed anywhere that I could see as far as a change. And we saw that, 2 days ago. So you can hack station services now. You can do stuff with Intosis links now. And unlike anywhere I've seen previously, you don't get to see who is actually hacking you. So when somebody shoots a tower of yours, you get a notification that one of your towers is under attack, where it is, what's going on. When you're getting hacked, what we're seeing in the current release of this is you just see that someone who is hostile is activating an Intosis link cycle. You don't know who it is. You don't know what alliance. You don't know if it's just like one of your friendly guys doing it as a joke or whatever. And I don't think that was discussed anywhere, and that's really dumb. Like, you need to know who is attacking you. You need to know who is trying to do these things for you, just because and if there was a grand discussion about this, I missed it. So does anybody else know what the fuck happened there?
I have no clue. I don't think it was in the patch notes at all.
It was a surprise to many of us on the CSM as well, I can say.
Oh!
Uh-oh.
Great news.
We don't have time for this.
Here we go.
Probing questions, find out interesting things. That's exactly what I was curious about. This is a thing we have to be careful of as we get closer to any kind of SOV system change, is when there are discussions on the public forums about ideas and changes, and then if there's a patch change that is a major gameplay mechanic change. So notice is a huge deal. Notice gives you an idea of the battle space. It's important, and there should be a discussion about who knows what, when, and where. And if this just changed and this happened, then with nobody talking about it, and if the CSM wasn't informed or had any discussion about it, I don't think it's
a case so much of wasn't informed as there may have been a cross communication. But I can't talk too much about that. But I will say that a number of people sort of looked at that and were like, "That wasn't my understanding of how it was supposed to work." And I personally, my opinion of it is that, as an alliance leader, I got to say it really sucks. I'm not a big fan of it.
I'd like to know who's attacking me so that I can, think about, well, okay, they're doing this. So if I bring a fleet, this is, an approximation of what they could field against me or what they might field against me given their FCs, their alliance, etc. So missing out on some of that information leaves a lot for interesting fights, because you're like, I don't know really who it is, so we'll go out there and find out. But, which, like I said, could be interesting. But as an alliance leader, I imagine for you guys, it's like, well, there's information that I'm missing and I don't know and I don't like it.
Yeah, well, I get random people testing testing links on our stations from our neighbors, and I have no idea if that's something I should be responding with 300 guys to, or if I should just be yelling at the Bastion or something.
This is kind of an amusing thing. So this is a perfect illustration of how people who don't necessarily understand how nullsec blocks work misinterpret when we talk about gameplay. So there's a person in chat right now who is basically saying that we are crying about this and we're upset because it's going to hurt us and it's going to ruin us, or we just want free intel handed to us on a platter. So here's how this works. a lot of times you have smaller organizations that think that big orgs don't have the resources or the ability to have somebody in local simply watching this sort of thing. The larger organizations actually have all of the ability to do it. They usually have basically third-party software tools like internal custom software that we've created to be able to have real-time status updates and all this other sort of stuff. So here's how this is going to work, kind of like with siphons. People thought siphons were going to be amazing and ruin blocks and what have you, and yet instead it ended up being the blocks using the siphons primarily against the people who didn't have the organization. If you don't have notice and we have the organization, but the smaller groups do not, what will end up happening is you give an organization like Reavers these links that cannot be scouted in any way in terms of who is this. And you go to an organization that has less people, less ability to do scouting and recon because they have less organization. And it's those guys who need the intel more than large blocks, because large blocks can just organize their way around it with superior tools. So in almost every case where we're talking about this and somebody's like, oh, tee-hee-hee, you want this and it's going to ruin you, it's usually the other guys who are less organized and smaller who are just going to get fucked to death.
Manpower will overcome any deficit. I've got 2,000 guys. I've got them living in all of my systems, and it won't be more than a minute or two before I know who the hell's entoasing my system. But if you're 10 guys and maybe you're only on during a certain time zone, or you're 100 guys or you're 200 guys, whatever it may be, you may not have any clue. I mean, that may be a system just nobody's in and you guys don't have any clue who's there. It could be PL. It could be a guy in a troll scepter. You don't know.
Well, that's interesting too, because, and I mean, it's a good point that it's going to hurt the smaller alliances or the smaller fleets rather than the bigger ones, because, CCP has done nothing but talk about how they want smaller entities to be able to break into nullsec, and this does, from what you guys are talking about, it hurts them more than it helps.
Well, so that's been the continuing problem is that the idea of how you get I have to repeat this every single show, is just because you make something more difficult for everyone actually makes it harder for the little guy compared to the big guy. Yep. If you want little organizations in nullsec, what you need is to make things easier, right? Actually, for everyone, things need to be easier. We got this. We're fine. The people who are blocks in nullsec have already climbed that particular mountain. If things are made easier for blocks, it doesn't make a difference because we're already doing everything that we want to do already. What's tough for the smaller guys is that they don't have the organizational structure, they don't have the institutional knowledge, they don't have the brain trust, they don't have the third-party resources, they don't have the sheer number of people in terms of man hours and labor to be able to overcome these challenges. So, but it's a classic sort of naive game design problem of people think, if you just make it harder for the guys at the top, then little guys will suddenly magically climb the same cliff because of reasons. Like, okay, good luck.
And with the current iteration of Entosis, actually, I was a little questionable about the way things were going to work, and I'm actually really, really intrigued with the gameplay impact that's already had. On Wednesday, I went down to Quirius in a Covops just to record one of the fights they're having, and the Reavers actually formed up like an hour and a half early for the fight. They camped the Station of Darkness, and they Entosis linked the cloning service. So whenever Darkness started forming up, they had guys trying to jump clone and pod back, or trying to kill themselves and pod back over to the station that they're forming up in. And because Reavers formed early and Entosis linked those modules, they were ending up in high sec with their clones because the cloning was reinforced. And
I mean, the whole system creates a lot of opportunities for problems, or not problems so much as gameplay like that, but it's not something you necessarily have seen before, but in commonly used. But I think it's going to be an increasing thing that you see people going and going out and doing that in the first place so that they can hurt the ability of their opponents to respond. So.
Well, they didn't need a massive fleet to go and reinforce this structure, though. They needed a few ships with an Entosis link and a few ships to defend the guy with the Entosis. I think it's going to really change some of the meta when it comes to how people form for fleets and how people prep for fleets. And as a FC, you have to be prepared. If some group of frigates or whatever comes to your station early, you have to defend that. That way, when people are trying to get back to that station to help form your fleet to fight later, we'll be able to actually jump clone there or pod there because of the Entosis changes.
But it's just going to be space. Amazing. It's kind of great because I don't have to worry about any of this. I can go Entosis someone's station. They don't know it's PL. They show up. I get to frag them.
That's right, exactly. Like
living the dream of not owning
it's
space.
Your hit. Yep. They don't know that it's actually PL. and they go like, oh yeah, we'll go over there, and then they get annihilated. Or in the case of like Reavers, which totally don't exist, I keep getting reminded in chat that Reavers do not exist. Just like Burn Cheetah and Burn Amar canceled this year. We have all these important things to keep in mind. Reavers going through a wormhole, popping out with 1 million Entosis links, and you have all of these guys hitting a different station in a different system in a region simultaneously. Like everybody goes there, they cloak, they wait, and all at once everybody just goes, okay, coordinated way, everybody initiates a hacking protocol simultaneously, and the notifications for that are going to be amazing, and nobody's going to have any clue what's going on. So
yeah, and the notion that people aren't going to do that when, as I've said, there are a lot of bored people in the north.
We're totally going to do that. I basically just said that is exactly what we're going to do with this organization.
But they don't, a lot of people don't believe you, I think.
And sometimes it's not even about bored. For some people, it's just,
oh, that's
you know
fun.
What? This is what I do in Eve, and it's fun, and screw it, because that's what people in Eve do. They do things that look fun, even if other people hate them, because it's fun.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, there isn't anything that a large group of people won't do just to see if it's any fun or not. And the notion that somehow, well, not everybody's going to do that. Sure they are. If
Wrong.
It griefs the hell out of people and makes for fun, then they're going to do it. And to assume otherwise is just really sort of hurting yourself from the get-go as far as creating a concept goes. So,
yeah, I was just thinking the amount of stuff that PL or other groups like PL could do with this, with like you guys were talking about, it doesn't tell you who's attacking. PL could literally send one ship in and start Entosis linking it, wait for the response, and then drop them with a bunch of with 80 redeemers, which they've done before and killed supers with 80 redeemers. So
my god, the fishing possibility.
Yes, you send one ship in.
You're not going to know it's PL or something like that. So instead of that, wow.
You wait for the response fleet, then drop a bunch of Black Ops or Titan Bridge in or something.
You go out and you think it's something, and you're like, well, I could probably deal with this. It's no big deal. And then, it's something like PL, and you're just like, oh, I can't handle this. Oh, is that their whole fleet now? Oh, I got baited. That's nice.
Yeah. So we've got a wormhole superhighway that we've been sort of working the last few months, and we finally gave it a name. It's called Fury Road.
Nice.
Road.
Nice.
So it allows us to project all over the place. We've got this neat little program. So you can't. We used to have like the biggest Sino network in the game, right? We had a corp called the Backup Legion, and it was just Sino characters and stuff like this. And I don't know, people used to give us a lot of shit, like, oh, you just light a Sino and you're there. It's super easy. I mean, it was some work. We had tools and things like this. So we just transitioned from having those alts to just scanner alts, and we just...
It's just another example of how numbers can overcome virtually any problem they throw at you, and they're creating, in the classic Mittani example of they're trying to weight down Harrison Bergeron on one hand, the 140-pound weightlifter, and all they're screwing is the guy who weighs 30 pounds and can barely lift his own arms.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's neat what they're doing is they're sort of dialing back the power creep in the game, but they're kind of pushing the complexity creep. So if you're an organization like Goons or an organization that has been around for a long time, you're perfectly capable of handling the complexity creep as it gets bigger and more involved. But if you're just starting out, it sort of creates a little bit of a barrier to entry. Like I don't expect a low sec corp to just say, okay, well we're gonna just buy 20 virtue sets and start a program.
Wormhole highway network,
yeah, exactly. I don't expect them to be able to compete in any ways. But
no, you have an IT department. The average alliance doesn't. So.
Yeah. There's a question in chat. Midnight Bard asked if there are any financial rewards gained from doing the sites used to recover from Entosis hacks. I don't know if any of you guys know the answer to that.
I don't think so.
I personally don't know the answer. I was hoping one of you might.
No, I mean, I've never heard anything about any kind of like PvE related rewards for like, completing commandoed contests or something. Because people would just set them off themselves with alt characters to be able to farm them if there was like a financial reward or something like that. I mean, I think that the wormhole discussion is kind of a fascinating one because, a lot of the discussions about Phoebe being some sort of magic bullet that would get rid of coalitions or something, obviously that didn't happen, but the people who were designing it and the people who were supporting it seemed to think it would. There seems to be this increasing gulf of misunderstanding, not even misunderstanding, just either ignorance or blindness, willful blindness, or just rose-colored lenses, or maybe even just straight out hubris, and where you have a lot of people just don't seem to get how blocks work. And when we lay it out real talk, like I a long time ago, I just started telling people how it was, because it just doesn't even matter. Like it's more of an interesting competition. We say, this is what we do, this is what our best practices are, this is what we're going to do. Look, we're going to make this move, we're going to make this pool ball go into this particular pocket at this time. But it's almost as if the more that we real talk about how things actually work in Eve, the more mistrust or is just assumed to be some sort of lie or conspiracy. And so with Phoebe, we were kind of like, well, this isn't actually going to really change power projection or get rid of blocks. You'll stop seeing capitals bouncing across the map. But everybody just stopped using that and started using like Sino nets and just started using wormholes.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we moved 300 to 400 guys from Declan and all of the other parts of Imperium space into Aquarius last night through wormholes. It's like 400 dudes, like 300 to 400 dudes, all through wormholes, and no big deal. And then we took wormholes right back home. So it was easy, super easy to be able to do that.
Since Phoebe, there's been a huge rise in the amount of like big fights you see in wormholes. So I mean, that's because people are just using them more. It makes sense to use that as your way of forcing projection in a projection nerf situation.
Yep.
I mean, that's good. I mean, wormholes are a really ideal area of content. It's a sort of a unique aspect of gameplay. And I like the idea that, by using wormholes as sort of a highway, instead of just Sinos, you do have, the K-space people have an opportunity to interact with the W-space people on a more regular basis. And so
yeah, I really do.
Sort of,
I have to say, I love that mechanic. Like, I was skeptical at first, but I do like the way power projection has sort of mutated in that you have to take wormholes. So to do it, you have to put in a little bit of work. So you have to be in space looking for things. You could potentially get interrupted by someone. I mean, not really doing it from a cloaked ship, but...
Yeah, well, there's a little bit more risk involved, for sure.
There's also a bit of a defense, which is you can roll wormholes if they're into your space.
Yep.
So.
Yeah.
So that gets interesting. I mean, the subcap gameplay is wonderful. We see a real. I mean, there was a cap fleet that was wiped out last night, of course, in ED TAC, but that's been relatively unusual. We haven't really seen that many big cap fights since Phoebe, because the fatigue changes make them really kind of obnoxious to move around. But being able to power project subcaps, I don't think is really a problem for people, because it allows everyone to go get fights all across the galaxy when nothing too much is going on. Going through wormholes is great. I just wish that we had more variety in terms of the subcap meta, because holy crap, it's another Ishtar fleet. Holy crap, it's another Tengu fleet. Like, come on, guys.
They need to bring back battlecruiser brawls and battleships where we can have those
or
big
drakes. I mean, maybe with the freaking like precision missile module, to be able to have like throwaway Drake fleets again.
Well, the Drake does have 5 lows, so maybe the Drake will be a great platform for it.
It could be. But guys, we are starting around time. We got about 7 minutes left, and we have coming on right after this is the boat show. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to push back our giveaways, or all the giveaways that we're going to be today. I want to do them next week. We'll do double giveaways next week. That way we don't have to interrupt the conversation, and we'll take up the next 5 minutes of talking about FozzeSov.
Okay. Do people actually have questions in particular about that?
Yeah.
There was one question that came up earlier. It goes back to the Alliance tournament, and it was just I'm not sure if you answered it, but it's an interesting question. What do you think is the most useful, if not just the coolest, Alliance tournament ship that's been given out so far?
I think it's or just from my perspective, I think it's either the Etana or the Cambion. Like those ships are just insanely good.
There's another question that was a while ago. Just curious what you guys thought about it.
Yeah, I really like the Etana and Cambion. The Etana is just an insane ship, and the Cambion, although it's like 100 billion-esque frigate, it's like totally worth it for.
Yeah, I really.
Wait, is Elise talking about liking a frigate?
So.
It's not a frigate
What?
though. It's like a Drake that's tiny. Like it's a mush down.
Well, we're gonna also. It's gonna be interesting because soon we're gonna have the boat show, which I think is going to be a disaster area in an entertaining sort of way. Like I have no idea what he's gonna do. We're kind of
best way
That's after the viewers done lynching me for pushing back the giveaways.
Yeah, like they're all angry at you for like
They're
pushing back the
pissed.
vote. So, like, wow. And then you're gonna inflict vote on them. It's gonna be like okay, maybe vote can lavish love on them. The love that you're denying them. I see what it is. But it should be interesting. I mean, FozzeSov at this point, like the reason why I was throwing a red flag on the field regarding the notification thing is less that, oh my god, it's doom especially for the blocks, about not having notification when a hack link activates as to who it is and where they're doing it, blah blah blah. It's just there's been discussion, a lot of discussion, public discussion on all of these threads from CCP with the player base when they're doing anything involving FozzeSov. Yep. And this is the first time that I think that we've seen a situation where there's been a change that was not discussed, that was then implemented, and just sort of randomly.
Well, as I say, I don't know that I would classify it as a change. I think it may have been a cross communication or a misunderstanding, but nonetheless, from my perspective, it's a step backwards because you're going from bosses where at least I can see who's attacking them to, apparently structures and Sov structures where I can't. And not that it's the end of the world for me, but it's annoying. And I don't see, it's sort of an unnecessary complication, as Elise says, it's complexity creep. So.
I think that it's, like I said before, I think it's interesting because it adds an element of uncertainty and unknown. And it's like you bring something to deal with it, and then it's either nothing or it's something more than you can handle with the fleet that you've brought out to deal with it. And it can add for some sort of interesting thing, but I agree overall that I think it's unnecessary and silly and just going to hurt more people than it helps.
Well, at least we're going to have something that's not Dominion, so we'll be able to not grab...
that's silver lining right now. Like, you could just have the most awful hackney
At least it's not
system.
Dominion, right?
And as long as it's new, it's fine. So.
Well, the big question, of course, about if it's not Dominion, they're not doing structures. Like the thing, a lot of us who, all of the blocks have for years been in this sort of arms race to get the most capitals and super capitals, right? And they're still under the FozzeSov system, and you can use them defensively quite effectively. You can't really use them effectively offensively, just because it just doesn't really work out very well. But the role of capitals, and particularly dreadnoughts and even supercaps and titans in a FozzeSov world has not really been made clear. There's been no blogs about it. There've been discussions that eventually we're going to announce some sort of discussion regarding how they're going to rebalance capitals or make them useful in the new system. And that's kind of that's tough because that's the end game ships for the entire player base in general. And I don't get it.
It leaves me in a weird spot because I've always wanted to train into especially like a nag, but with FozzeSov in this state where I'm like, why would I train into a nag when I have no use for it at all?
Yeah, and it may turn out to be fabulous. It may turn out to be crap. We just have literally no idea.
But I don't want to train into it when it's going to be shit.
Yeah,
like
people have to make these decisions in advance because the time delay, right? It takes so long to train these things. So, you need to know in advance. And in general, that's why we need notice on all these changes. Notice and discussions.
At least a direction would be nice. I completely agree with you.
Yeah, I have all these books sitting there that I want to inject, but then I want to just sell them because I don't even know if they'll be useful.
I mean, the neck's vertical, so I'm pretty sure you just have to train into that. It's just...
I want the vertical ship so badly, but it's just like, is it a waste of my ISK? What do I do?
I guess you could get a nightmare instead, but nightmares are kind of garbagey.
Yeah.
Nightmares are kind of
and like Java Junkie just said in chat, how can they launch the Sov rebalance without actually rebalancing caps first? And I agree. I think caps should have already been gone over before.
Well, the way they did it was by essentially taking caps out of the equation. But then the question becomes, what the hell do you do with caps?
That's a good point.
But
I don't even know. Like, it's just a weird thing. I mean, I like the idea of having. I mean, I've never been a big fan of super caps and titans. I mean, I despise them. Titans bridges, that's entertaining. I think Titans are in a really good place, or at least they were under the Dominion system. Super carriers. I don't really like the space garbage truck gameplay of like, here I am like taking out the soft structure trash. But the most fun that we ever had in Eve back in the day was always these amazing, like 10-minute long, capital slugfest with dread and carrier battles during the Great War, where like, somebody hot drops somebody, everybody hits siege, and everybody's stuck there for 10 minutes murder zoning each other. Like,
I love those.
Those are the best fights ever.
They were amazing.
Were fantastic.
Oh god, they were great. Like, and because you just know, you get in there, you press the siege button, and you go, I'm gonna die. The other guys are gonna die. Nobody's gonna get repped because everybody is in siege, and it's like Revolutionary War. Like everybody's forming up in battle lines or Civil War style. And
well,
just,
that was back in the day of the remote rep battleships too. Like that was the best time in Eve, literally.
I don't know. The best time in Eve for me was the Blap Titan era, and where
yes, well, of course
I could just jump in myself. I just solo a fleet and then just jump out. It was
sitting
fantastic.
I bought a Ragnarok just for blapping
with your Titan. Yeah, no, that's.
All right.
So much fun.
So, guys, we are going to be shutting things down. We might have to do a part 3 of this when it gets closer to FozzeSov releasing.
If we get more info. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's a thing where the player base as a whole is very interested in it, and people still have questions, and more theories are coming out, and CCP keeps doing things, so hopefully we'll have more to discuss. But brace yourselves, because I think we're going to be inflicting the boat show on you in a few, like immediately after this.
Yeah, literally as soon as I press stop, boat should be going on.
I'm going to be sitting here and just sort of covering my face in my hands.
Yeah.
And then after the boat show, we're going to be doing the dead zone, or the undead zone, or whatever we're calling it, which is more of me, Laz, Space Mexican, and Boat running our mouths about all the chaos.
H1Z1.
Probably sitting there going, oh God, what did Boat do on the show? I'm already cringing preemptively.
I'm so excited.
All right. So, guys, with that, we're going to go ahead and take or call it a night. Thank you, Thoric, Elise, and Mittens for coming on with myself and Nystrik. And we will, like I say, guys, we'll get you a part 3 when it gets closer to Sov, or maybe if they release an interesting dev blog. But coming up right after this is the boat show, so make sure you stay tuned, and we'll see you guys next Saturday.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.